Hello, I'm Joy Carroll, and this is In Conversation. In Conversation is a production of Penney Memorial Church, and today we are in conversation with Kenneth Davis. Welcome, Kenneth.
Thank you, ma'am.
So good to have you here, Kenneth. How long have you been living here at Penney these days?
We've lived at Penney now for 1 year and 6 months.
My goodness. Well, I'm the lucky one because I live right across the road from you.
I'm thankful.
Yeah, me too. Real thankful to have a good neighbor. And Kenneth, you come from a very interesting background and a lot of farmland life that is very interesting. So let's go back. Where were you born, by the way?
I was born in Graceville, Florida, in my great-grandmother's home.
Graceville, you have to tell us where Graceville is.
Graceville is 100 miles due west of Tallahassee, Florida, 60 miles north of Panama City Beach, Florida, and about 20 miles south of Dothan, Alabama.
Okay, so you're really near Alabama.
Amen. We are so close. So we almost consider ourselves Alabamians some days.
Do you ever get confused whether you're an Alabamian or whether you're a Floridian?
No, ma'am, not in the least. Nobody wants to be from Alabama.
We want to just make sure you knew where you were from.
Right, that's for sure.
That's good. So you were born there, and did you go to school then right there in Graceville?
I went to school right there in Graceville, except for a couple of years after my father died, and I moved outside of Graceville into Holmes County. And at that time, I went to Poplar Springs School for the 3rd and 4th grades and moved back to Graceville as a 5th grader.
Well, we need to know what kind of a farm or whatever that it was when you were living there near Graceville. What was that?
Well, my parents lived on a plantation there outside of Graceville, and they went into town for me to be born, and we went back then to the plantation to live only for a couple of years.
And what did you grow on that plantation?
We grew peanuts, cotton, corn primarily.
And the cash crops were?
Was cotton and peanuts primarily was the cash crops.
And wasn't there some kind of a big place that did something with peanuts in Graceville?
Well, there in Graceville was the largest peanut shelling plant in the world at one time, and they did cooking oil there and on the grounds. And of course they had peanuts for shipping out, and there was a railroad cars there every day to haul the peanuts out to various destinations.
Oh my, so really, in a way, that was really the center of peanut growing area.
Oh, it was. It was the center of peanut growing, and watermelons for a few years was a very popular cash crop.
But not anymore, you said for a few years, no
Well,
longer?
for a few years, and of course we did peas, and that was a large cash crop for a lot of the people. We grew black-eyed, purple-hull peas, and we would haul them to Birmingham, Alabama.
See, I knew you were going to get over to Alabama at some point.
Yeah, that was the large curb market for produce that was produced for you to go. And you would go and stay with your peanuts or peas or whatever you was raising until you sold out.
So that area where you're talking is a really rural and farmland, isn't it?
Yes, farmland.
Of Florida.
Yes.
Probably one of the largest farmlands too. Did you grow? Were there other crops that were raised there besides peanuts, cotton, corn, these peas, and everything else?
Yeah, not really. Corn was another cash crop. Very little seeds were grown in the Graceville area.
Yeah.
A lot of huge gardens was there in the Graceville area.
I bet it was
for
interesting.
family use. And
so did you have lots of friends who all their families were involved with this kind of work too?
Yes, we had several good neighbors that would assist us in the gathering of the crops at least. we was primarily responsible for the preparation and the planting and so forth, and but they would come in to help you gather the crops, the watermelons and peanuts. And
how do they do peanuts? It's by machinery, isn't it? All the harvesting.
The harvesting is by you plow them up, and at that time we stacked peanuts on a stack pole for them to dry and to season themselves. And,
oh my goodness!
And then you would bring in a peanut picker to pick the peanuts off of the vines after some kind of seasoning period. Yeah.
Well, I feel really not so smart about peanuts. How do peanuts grow? Are they like a vine, like a grapevine of some sort?
No, they're planted in the ground, and you plow them and a few times a year just to control the weeds, because then you would use the vines that the peanuts produce for feed for the cattle and horses and other animals. Yeah.
So are the peanuts themselves actually under the ground when
they're under
growing?
the ground? Yes,
And so when you harvest them, you're turning the ground
you're
over.
Turning the ground over and
oh my goodness!
Rolling the peanuts up on top of the ground.
Yeah. So all you fans who love peanut butter and all the rest of it, you now know where a lot of those peanuts come from,
That's
right?
where they came from, and still
That's pretty
do
exciting.
to this day.
Yeah, that's very exciting. And I think you moved after your daddy died to a dairy farm.
I did. My dad died when I was 9 years old, I guess, and we moved out to another county adjoining Graceville, and I lived on a dairy farm for 2 years with my grandparents, me and my mother and sister. And it was there where I changed schools, of course, went to a little county school, and I enjoy it, and I still stay in contact with some people that was in school at that time.
You develop real relationships when you're in those little communities.
Yes, you do. Yeah.
And you don't just lose those relationships until people pass.
No, you don't, because you were so dependent on each other.
Yeah.
And that you really grow close, just like family itself.
Of course.
Yes.
You really needed each other to
you
survive.
You had to have each other.
Yeah.
You sure
well, bless
did.
you, and how wonderful that you did all this. But you said one thing about how you liked dairy farm, whether that you thought you wanted to be a dairy farmer forever.
I never thought I wanted to be a dairy farmer forever. I found out early in life I did not want anything to do with a dairy farm because of its hours, if nothing else, from before daylight till after dark. And during the months that it would freeze, you would hand milk those 100+ cows.
That's a lot of work, isn't it?
That is, and when you work taking care of the cows, you was taking care of the fence to keep them inside the pasture. No.
So you didn't just deal with the cows; you had to deal with fences, the pastures, the food that they ate.
That's right. Yeah.
And dairy cows in those days ate out in the pasture a lot.
They did, yeah. We maintained pasture land for them.
And probably had hay that you cut for them too.
We did,
yeah. Well, that's all really interesting because you're a true a young man who grew up in the rural areas of Florida.
I did, yes ma'am.
That's wonderful to hear.
Yes,
and then somewhere along the line, you met your beautiful wife. And who is that?
Yeah. I met my beautiful wife to this very day, as a first grade person. My mother-in-law would tell everybody, and she would tell my wife, that we met in the first grade when we were registering for school.
Oh my.
And so we've been in close contact with one another
since
all those years. Yeah.
Of course, you're only 60 years old, so it's not been that long, has it? How long have you been married now?
We have been married 64 years this past August.
And that doesn't count all those years from first grade to when you were married either.
Oh, no.
So you must have known your wife how many years?
I knew her all those 12th grade years in school.
So add that on to 64, and we got about 76 or 78 years, something total, like that.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, Kenneth, you have hit a record here, I think. That's really great. So where did you and your wife move after you were married in 1960?
Yes. We moved to Dothan, Alabama initially. I had a job with Sears Roebuck Company.
Wait a minute. You said Sears Roebuck, not Penney Farms? Penney or PRC, Penney, or whatever we call it, J.C. Penney?
No, I went to work for Sears Roebuck Company,
Okay.
a competitor of J.C. Penney's. But we did all of our shopping at J.C. Penney's because that was the store in Dothan, Alabama.
Oh my goodness.
And so I worked for Sears for those few months. My wife worked for a Hub City finance company during that time. And we shortly thereafter, I had an opportunity to move to Tallahassee, Florida, and go to work for Florida State University.
And now that's where you worked for many years then,
That's
haven't you?
where I worked for 59 years and 3 months in some capacity, and it changed from a few years, I'd say, in the same position. I wound up retiring as the maintenance and construction superintendent for the university in its capacity.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was in Tallahassee.
That was all in
Florida
Tallahassee.
State University.
I went through several presidents that was former presidents and presidents of the college, and went through a lot of football coaches, because I also, on my own time, did field communication for the football team.
What's that?
And that's
Kenneth?
for the coaches' staff, for the coaches on the field to communicate with the coaches in the press box to let them know what they had seen or thought they had seen. And some strong expressions was expressed that I got to hear that I didn't repeat.
So you were the one who communicated between the press box and the coaches down there on the field.
Right.
Yeah, that must have been interesting too.
It was interesting, some days more so than others, and had Coach Bobby Bowden for 25 of those years.
Now, what do you do here at Penney Farms? What kinds of activities?
I'm involved with the golf cart shop here on campus. I enjoy the work. I enjoy the 3 or 4 people that I work with, and they're all Christian men, seems like, from what I come to know them, and we just enjoy, and I'm learning from them, because I knew nothing about golf carts except you would see one occasionally in the towns you lived in. Yeah.
Wow, so you're actually one of the workers, and how many days of the week do you work with Gary, for example?
Well, we work 2 days a week, established days and hours, but we wind up working other odd days because of various repairs that we don't do on the service days that we're there primarily for.
And you're enjoying them.
I thoroughly enjoy them. I learn a lot that I had no idea went on with golf carts.
Well, that's a good thing. Here you came in and you said, I'm going to do some volunteer work and I'll learn.
Yeah.
And when you first came, you weren't sure whether you were going to really like the place so much, and now?
Now I thoroughly enjoy the place. I enjoy the people that I've met and the new people that's coming in continuously.
And because you're working at the golf cart, you get to meet a lot of people, don't
I
you?
get to meet them firsthand because they bring their carts in to be serviced on a regular basis, and I get to know them better because I'm not good at remembering names.
None of us are.
None of us are.
That's why we wear name tags.
Yes, we do, yes.
Oh, Kenneth, that's great. And I know you came here because of your daughter who is married to someone.
Yes, my daughter lives here in Fleming Island, and she is married to a man that used to work here as a chaplain, Jim, and people here know him as George, I guess.
George Hall.
And, yeah, so a lot of the people I've met here and still continue to meet knows my son-in-law better than I do because they knew him long before they knew
years.
me. Yes.
Oh, Kenneth, this has been a fun time to talk to you. It's great to know someone who worked out in that rural area of Florida and
Thank you, ma'am.
taught us about peanuts and all those things that I didn't know about.
Amen.
So it's been a pleasure talking with you, Kenneth,
Good.
and thank you so much for being in conversation with us today.
Great.